Alrighty, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'll kick things off. So thank you for joining us this morning for our virtual outing, The Nature of Ring Mountain. My name is Jessie, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Greenbelt Alliance. And for those of you who aren't familiar with our work, our mission is to educate, advocate, and collaborate to ensure the Bay Area's lands and communities are resilient to a changing climate. The work we do to protect the Bay Area's natural and agricultural lands while also creating thriving communities, as well as this free outings program, is made possible by you. So please donate today, which you can do securely on our website at greenbelt.org/donate. And during the outing, please feel free to ask questions, and we will make sure to answer them at the end. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Ken, our wonderful outings coordinator. So take it away, Ken.
Okay, well, welcome to everybody. And I know some of you have signed on to or signed up for our outings before, even our virtual outings. We've been offering these for the last couple of months in place of our on the ground outings. And usually this Ring Mountain outing, Cathy leads it for us in usually the last weekend in May. And the timing is deliberate. That's to see a very special flower that grows on Ring Mountain that Cathy will be talking about. We have a couple more outings on the schedule, virtual outings in second week in February. Bob Johnson, one of our board members, will be leading an urban walk through the Elmwood neighborhood of Berkeley. And we get to see some of the, well, besides Bob is an architecture expert, but he'll also be showing us houses that are notable because they were the residents of some fairly notorious and some just famous Berkeley residents. And then towards the end of February, we'll have a walk to look at the peregrine falcons, which nest up in one of the places in Pine Canyon. So we'll get to see the peregrine falcons. We'll talk a little bit about the interesting geology of Castle Rock and the China Wall, and get to look at some of the flora and some of the natural history. So Cathy Petrick, our presenter today, is a former park ranger from Yellowstone and Golden Gate National Recreation Area. She loves wildflowers, dogs, and baking with berries, stone fruit, and lemons. She is currently a high school English teacher at the Marin School, where she leads many field trips to discover wildflowers and then asks students to describe a sun cup, say, with a minimum of 5 metaphors. She lives in Corte Madera with exciting hiking opportunities on Ring Mountain, Baltimore Canyon, and Mount Tam. She's an identical triplet. She is married with 2 grown children, and she has a new puppy. And Cathy, being a teacher, she'll let you know right away, but you got to pay attention because there will be a quiz at the end. Cathy?
Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Jessie. It's nice to be here with all of you. Thank you for coming to our virtual outing, The Nature of Ring Mountain. This is a photo that I took myself recently from one of the 2 summits of Ring Mountain. This is right up from Endeavor Drive, looking out on San Pablo Bay. I'm usually up on Ring Mountain about twice a day with my dog and various family members and friends. And it's my favorite place. I like to think of it as my backyard. And I'm happy to share with you what I know about Ring Mountain. As Ken mentioned, I have been leading annual hikes up Ring Mountain. And that's me in the middle. And maybe some of you who are in this photo are also here today. I hope I'm seeing some of my old friends. But I'll remind you that today I can't see you or hear you, sadly. But I encourage you to write questions or comments in either the chat window or in the Q&A window. And Jessie will help me to compile the questions for the end, and then Jessie will read the questions and Ken and I will answer your questions at the end of the slideshow. So here we go. Let's pretend we're all heading out on a lovely spring day when I usually lead this walk. up to Ring Mountain to see as many wildflowers as we can. Early morning, sometimes the fog is settled down low and then it lifts. That's what you're seeing here. And in the evening, often we get beautiful colors from the summit of the mountain. Here's my always companion. This is my new puppy who is finally big and strong enough to hike with me as often as I hike on Ring Mountain. She's an Australian Shepherd, which maybe you didn't recognize because I kept her tail, so she doesn't have the docked tail. And her name is Vika with a V, V-I-K-A, and she has a ton of energy. She looks a lot like Ken's puppy. Okay, so overview. The preserve isn't that big. It's only 405 acres, so it's suitable for hiking, but not that suitable for bicycling because it's smallish and very steep. And so as a hiker, you don't encounter too many bicycles, which is nice for the hikers. The summit is 602 feet, so you climb all the way up those 600 feet from the trailhead. And in one direction, you see Mount Tamalpais, the other direction, Richardson Bay, and the other direction, San Pablo Bay. So there is a beautiful panoramic view from the top. The trailheads are usually used mostly by neighbors. There are 5 trailheads, and the main trailhead is on Paradise Drive. That one's well marked, so if you've never been to Ring Mountain, I recommend that you start from the trailhead on Paradise Drive. What makes Ring Mountain special is there's so much to explore and to talk about. The history is fascinating. There's a Miwok village site at the base of the mountain where you can see a midden with crushed shells. There's a grinding stone next to a beautiful creek. And at top, in a boulder, you can see some petroglyphs, and I'll show you slides of those as we progress. The human history is interesting in each of its chapters. During the Mexican era, the land was settled by an Anglo-Saxon pioneer named John Thomas Reid, who claimed Mexican citizenship, married the daughter of the Presidio Commandant, and they had 4 children together. And so I'll show you some photographs we have of that family. And then as we imagine ourselves hiking, we'll take a close look at the rocks under our feet. The metamorphic rocks that you see on Ring Mountain are unusual and rare. And of course, you know that rocks break down into soil. And if the rocks are rare, then the plants will be rare too. And especially as we get up on top of the mountain, you will see some of the rarest plants that are endemic to Ring Mountain. And the star of the show, of course, is the Tiburon mariposa lily that grows only on Ring Mountain and nowhere else on planet Earth. So that's your overview. Let's look at human history on Ring Mountain. You know that shell mounds or middens can be found at various places around the bay shore. In fact, there are about 425 mounds that extend from the Russian River to Half Moon Bay. But then as you're looking closer at San Francisco Bay, imagine that there are about 100 mounds that rim San Francisco Bay shores. And those mounds would indicate separate village sites. We think that people were living in this area as long as 5,500 years ago. Okay, don't be underwhelmed by my midden, but this is all I have to show you. In fact, okay, you see the guy standing here? His boots are on top of the midden. And if he were to crouch and look very closely, he would see flashing fragments of very white clamshells that are mostly pulverized now under his feet. And also beautiful glittering specks of mica from the metamorphic rock in the area as well. You see the bench of rock here. It's situated right next to the creek. The creek runs along behind. okay? And then someone who wanted to grind acorns in a mortar would be very comfortably seated on this bench of rock that I'm showing you with the cursor. And then right next to you, you'll find this mortar. And at times people put these stone pestles inside, but they're not original. Usually there's nothing inside the mortar. It's just empty like this. And of course it collects rainwater during the rainy season. But it's a beautiful, lovely, peaceful, quiet spot in the shade under some oak trees. I want to show you this slide because this shows how middens could be as tall as 30 feet tall. So this is a shell mound, and you see a human figure. I think it's a man standing right there near the top, and that gives you a sense of scale. This particular photograph shows an excavation in Berkeley, and it shows you the midden that's been excavated, the shell mound that's about 30 feet tall in that case. As you hike to the top of Ring Mountain, it's very easy to find the petroglyph rock because there's a little trail that goes right to it and it's signed. The Miwok petroglyphs don't have any known significance. The sign will tell you that the carvings are believed to have either practical or spiritual significance, which tells you really nothing because that covers all bases. The significance is not known, but they're really interesting. From the ground, they don't, let me just show you this. Okay, so here this is the sign that indicates the path to take to that giant boulder. And then you walk around the back of the boulder and that's where the petroglyphs are. Take a look, okay, especially these two slides here and here. You're looking at some carved circles or ovals where the perimeter of the oval is etched deeply, and that causes the center or the nucleus to pop out so that it's rounded. The ovals are about the size of a human hand. And as you stand on the ground and extend your reach up high on the boulder, the carvings don't extend beyond the height that a human can reach. And from the distance of the highest carvings on the rock, some people have guessed that probably these were made by women because they're of the right height, where a woman's reach would extend no higher than the limit of the carvings. Here's my friend Tanya, so that you can see some scale with a person standing in front of the carved rock. And this is what I'm trying to show you here. This etched oval causes this nucleus or this rounded oval to emerge from the center. As we look at human history on Ring Mountain, we need to tell the story of John Thomas Reid, who was the first Anglo-Saxon settler. He was an Irishman born in Dublin, and he went to sea at age 15 with a seafaring uncle. He got as far as Mexico, and then he left ship in Acapulco, and then he lived in Mexico for 6 years, of course, becoming fluent in Spanish. Then he made his way further north up to Alta California, to Los Angeles on a Mexican ship in 1826. And he arrived in Yerba Buena, as San Francisco was called at that time. Fortuitously, he made friends with the Spanish commandant, Antonio Sanchez of the Presidio, and he met Sanchez's daughters. There weren't many eligible women living in the area at that time. And so John Thomas Reid took a special interest in the commandant's youngest daughter, Hilaria, who was then 13 years old. Of course, she was too young to court, but he waited patiently for 6 years until she was of age to court. And meanwhile, he impressed her by naming his sailboat after her, the Hilaria. And he frequently was a guest of the commandant And so in that way, the two got to know each other slowly. Reid was ambitious. We don't have a photo of Reid, I apologize. The photo you see on this slide shows Reid's wife, Hilaria Sanchez, on the left, seated, and posing with a hand on her shoulder is her son, John Thomas Reid. And this son was said to look like the father. So they married in, well, first of all, John Thomas Reid became a citizen of Mexico in 1834. In order to become a citizen at that time, one had to speak Spanish, which you'll remember he did. And you had to also be of the Catholic faith. He converted and then he was. And so he was ready to take advantage of land grant opportunities that became available to Mexican citizens after the secularization of the missions. He had his eyes kind of fixed on a beautiful piece of land at what's now the Sausalito Peninsula, but that had military significance, and so that was not available to him. He took a land grant initially up near what's now Cotati, and he got burned out and returned back to this area. And he then was granted the first 8,000 acre land grant north of Sausalito. And here's his homestead site right here. You're looking at his adobe that also contained wooden beams that he milled himself in Marin's first sawmill, which he built. Okay, so this is the adobe where John and Hilaria moved when they were first married. And subsequently, they had 4 children, and they were living on the 8,000 acre land grant. And that much land, 8,000 acres, included wilderness that's now modern Tiburon, Belvedere, Corinthian Island, parts of Mill Valley, and parts of Corte Madera. Bear in mind that land grants were huge. The smallest ones were 5,000 acres, and the biggest ones were 50,000 acres. The sawmill, do I have a picture of that? No, sorry. Okay, the sawmill was outfitted with a circular saw that had to be purchased from the Russians at Fort Ross in exchange for 300 elk skins, 20 bear skins, and 200 cattle skins. That's an expensive circular saw. Sadly, Reid died quite young at age 38. He fell ill with a fever. It's not known if he had sunstroke or if he was suffering from some other illness. And at the time, bloodletting was a common practice to alleviate fever and to effect a cure. And his well-meaning neighbors and friends attempted a bloodletting and inadvertently severed an artery. And in that way, he bled to death and died on June 29th, 1843. According to Mexican law, his rancho was to be divided between his children. He had 4 children, but they were still toddlers at that time. So he left his young widow, Hilaria, and 4 very young children. And so his widow continued to operate the rancho, and later the land came into possession of his 4 children. In fact, descendants of his continued to graze cows and horses on Reid Ranch for 130 years up until 1965. In 1965, the Reid Ranch was sold to a development company, Ring Mountain Limited. But this was an anti-growth era, and so there were oppositionists who were preservationists who objected to the sale of the land and the development of the land. And a long legal battle ensued. The Tiburon Mariposa lily was discovered growing on the mountain in 1972. Rare rocks and other rare plants were also recognized to have value on the mountain. And in that way, the preservationists were able to win the fight. And the Nature Conservancy purchased the top part of the mountain in 1981, and then acreage was added later. And then Ring Mountain Preserve was dedicated in 1983 and managed by the Nature Conservancy until the management was turned over in 1995 to Marin County Open Space. And currently it's still Marin County Open Space that's the land manager. Okay, now imagine you're hiking and you're wondering about those rocks under your feet. They're glittering with mica. If you stop to lean against one of the giant boulders, which Ken calls blue schist knockers, oh no, wait, or was that Professor Lawson? Yes, that was Professor Lawson. We'll get to him. Imagine you stop to lean against one of these blue schist metamorphic boulders on the mountain. And if you look closely, you might see some elongated blue and green crystals, and you might wonder what they are. You might feel under your thumb the knobby garnets that shine red and orange. And you might wonder about these rocks. So if you're lucky, then you have somebody like Ken to help you out. Or you do a little bit of research and you might discover David Barrow of Sonoma State, who mapped the area extensively and reminds us that it's these large boulders on Ring Mountain, these rare metamorphic blocks that make the geology so interesting up on Ring Mountain. I want to show you this one too. This is another really good book that I can recommend. This is Doris Sloane's book, and Doris might be here today if you are. Thank you, Doris, for this book. This describes how on Ring Mountain you're looking at about 165 million years of geologic activity. You have this colorful mosaic, and she helps you to sort it all out in this book. I've been talking about the unusual metamorphic blocks. These are the boulders that are so prominent on the middle section of the mountain and the top section of the mountain. And these probably are the oldest rocks from the crustal plate of the Pacific plate that were scraped off and subducted and sent deep, deep down, and then came into contact with the hot mantle, and then later were squeezed and heated and metamorphosed and changed. And then they later rose up through the different faults of the different faults, the earthquake faults and such. They came back up through faults, kind of like marshmallows floating to the top of a cup of cocoa. There they are now. Boom, they're sitting up on top again. And okay, Ken does a better job explaining the geology than I do, but again, most of the rocks you see on Ring Mountain today are of marine origin. So that means that they formed under the ocean, like basalt. It's a volcanic oceanic rock. And then they traveled with that Pacific plate until the Pacific plate collided with the North American plate. And then the colder ocean plate dove down and was subducted. And so the rocks that were on that oceanic plate, they got squeezed, they got heated, they got changed, they got metamorphosed. And then over time, a long time, they worked their way back up to the surface. And so now these boulders you see on top of Ring Mountain, they're probably the very first rocks that were scraped off when the two tectonic plates collided. And now we get to see them again. When you have rocks that are squeezed more than they are heated, I know I'm simplifying this, then it's more likely that you'll get these rare minerals that you see in the metamorphic rocks. And the minerals, okay, you're looking at schist and eclogite, and the minerals that you're seeing, the crystals that you're seeing, are most likely going to be glaucophane, hornblende, garnet, and lawsonite. I want you to pay attention to that last one, Lawsonite, because it derives its name from Professor Lawson, who was a University of California, Berkeley professor of geology. And we have some interesting stories to tell you about Professor Lawson. So bear with me. Oh, I knew you wanted to see the crystals. Okay, so this isn't quite what you'll see in the rocks. This is kind of prettier. It's harder to tell what you're looking at in the rocks, but you will see elongated blue and green and red crystals in the rocks. And this one's glaucophane, hornblende, garnet, the red one, and lawsonite you'll see is kind of greenish, right? Okay, Professor Andrew Lawson, born in 1861, died in 1952 at age 90. He was a professor of geology. He was known for a lot of important things. He wrote the 1908 report on the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. He identified and named the San Andreas Fault, and he named the Franciscan complex of those basalts and serpentinites and gray wacky shale and sandstone. He also was hired as the consulting geologist for the building of the Golden Gate Bridge in the 1930s. And the story goes that after the caisson had been dug, the hole had been dug to support the support the South Tower. Professor Lawson was lowered down in a bucket at the end of a crane to the very bottom of the hole that had been dug for the South Tower of the bridge. Way down inside that hole, he pulled out his rock hammer and he went tap, 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 tap. And then he shouted out, "This rings like steel, boys. Pour the concrete." And there he is. He taught geology at Berkeley, but he was never comfortable with women in his class. And so he would start every class by saying, "Good day, gentlemen." And this amused his students and probably irked some of them. So one day, as a prank, all the male students agreed to skip class so that when Professor Lawson shuffled in with his head down over his pile of lecture notes, there were only female students seated in the lecture hall. When he looked up to survey the class, he calmly proclaimed, "I see there is no one here today. Lecture is canceled." You might be wondering about his wives. He had 2 marriages. His first wife is pictured here in the lower right of this photograph. She was a geology student. And you see her, I believe, holding a rock hammer. I'm not sure what she's holding. But that's the first Mrs. Lawson. They had 4 children together, 4 sons. And then after she died, he remarried another young geology student, Isabel Collins. And of interest perhaps to you is that he fathered his 4th son with his second wife at age 87. And that was news worthy of publication on the first page of the Berkeley Gazette in 1949. 87 years old at the time with his 30-something-year-old wife. And then, as you might have guessed, he didn't live that much longer. He died at age 90, leaving behind his 3-year-old son, 4 surviving sons from the previous marriage, and his young widow. I mean, Ken will probably tell you at this point that his cause of death was most likely complications from childbirth. Okay, this is my favorite part of my talk, the wildflowers of Ring Mountain. With great joy, I watched the first milkmaids appear low down on the mountain. And then I continue to watch each flower emerge throughout the spring. So I think I'll present them to you more or less in the order of their appearance in the spring, which is so exciting to me. And it's when you get up on top of the mountain towards the end of the season that you will see the most rare flowers. Ring Mountain is unusual for mountains in the Bay Area in that it's mostly grassland. It's very open. It's mostly grassland and boulders on top, which allows you to enjoy some beautiful vistas. There's my first flower, the milkmaid. And then you usually see the coastal sun cup. It's true, I did ask my 11th grade English students to challenge themselves to write 5 metaphors to describe a sun cup, and they did a beautiful job. This is the wild cucumber. I love these little like pigtail type cords that you see between my fingers in the photograph. So fun to play with. The California buttercup. This one is quite rare. This is the Oakland star tulip. It's tiny, but if you know where to look on the right hillside at the right time in the spring, you'll see them growing in profusion, hundreds and thousands of flowers. This is checker bloom. This is the tidy tip. And you can see that the anthers become more pronounced, like almost like pepper flakes as the flower matures. This is a hillside where you have a combination of the poppies with the gold fields. I know a lot of people hate the broom because it's an invasive and it displaces natives, but isn't this a pretty photo? I love the little Scarlet Pimpernell. If you've been on a walk with me or with Ken, you've probably heard the story of the fictional character whose alias is the Scarlet Pimpernell. There was a play written that was later adapted into a book and later into a musical and later into a movie, all by this name, the Scarlet Pimpernell, but it's all based on a fictional character. Okay, here's the old book cover. The fictional character was an English aristocrat who you see pictured on the cover. And the English aristocrat's name was Sir Percy Blakeney. He was shy and retiring, the classic milquetoast in his everyday life. But at night, after the family had gone to bed, he would call together his band of gentlemen co-conspirators, and their mission during the Reign of Terror was to cross the English Channel and to rescue their French counterparts from prisons in Paris and to sneak them back across the Channel into England to safety. So this novel was set during the French Revolution, and Sir Percy Blakeney, under cover of darkness, would assume his alter ego under the title The Scarlet Pimpernell, and he would rescue French aristocrats from the guillotine. He always signed his letters with an image of that small scarlet flower, and that is how he became to be known as the Scarlet Pimpernell. Okay, back to the rare flowers. We're on top of the mountain now. That's the serpentinite, rocky terrain, and in the soil that breaks down from the serpentine rocks, you see this tiny little pink buckwheat that's quite rare. You'll also see the Tiburon Paintbrush. Yep, it's a yellow paintbrush. That's a little bit unusual. And this one's just pretty. That's an aster. And here's the flower you've been waiting for. This is the flower that only grows on Ring Mountain and nowhere else. It was probably protected because of the Reid family keeping the land in the family for 130 years or so. And then at the time they sold it, there was interest in preserving the special flowers on Ring Mountain. So if you hike on Ring Mountain at about Mother's Day, the end of May, and if you know which hillside to look on, you'll see this flower growing in profusion. Not just a few, you'll see hundreds. And it's unusual because it has these three kind of cat ear shaped petals. And you can see it's hairy inside. You can see an inner ring that's traced inside each of the three petals of this maroon rounded kind of scallop pattern. And then you see that the anthers and the stamen are quite pronounced as well. The colors are really cool. It starts out this bright yellow, like a greenish yellow. And then as the flower fades, the grasses around it fade to a straw color, a much lighter color. We were really lucky. One time I led the hike up Ring Mountain. We were really lucky because the scientist who originally categorized and named the flower came on our hike. And his name is Albert Hill. And you see him seated here in the blue t-shirt with the beard. And so it was in 1973 that he first published the description of Calochortus tiburonensis. And he had not been up on the mountain since 1973, but he joined us for a Greenbelt Alliance walk in 2018. And he was really happy to see it again. I had the sense that it was something he simply had to do. Okay, Ken made me put in this weird stuff that if you were hiking with me, I would show these things to you. You'll see a tree that looks like a frog and a rock that's carved into a head. Okay, that's the tree that looks like a frog. This is a coast oak tree. And do you see right here, look, I'll show you with my cursor, the eyes, right? And then this is like the lower part of the frog's mouth. And then there's even a nostril here, right? I hope you can see it. Near the Endeavor Road summit, you'll see this carved stone head. I don't know exactly how old it is. It's not believed to be 5,000 years old of the Miwok era, no. This is thought to have been carved by like a neighbor in the 1970s or something, but it's quite cool. And the lips, especially if you touch it, they're worn really smooth. There it is closer with lichen growing on the rock. You can see the eyes and the nose and the mouth and one shoulder. And so there we are at the top of the Taylor Road summit, and the sun is setting, and you're looking at Mount Tamalpais in the distance. And this picture my sister took of me with my pup, Vika, just yesterday. I told you I'm up there at all times of the day, especially morning and evening. And so the sun is setting once again on Ring Mountain. And there I am to see it. Okay, I think that I'm ready for questions and answers. And then we have a quick quiz. So Jessie, if you don't mind, I'll turn it back to you and you can help moderate the questions.
Happy to do so. Okay, so early on, Roman asked, is the petroglyph rock the same one known as Turtle Rock?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good question. No, but it's in view of Turtle Rock. So Turtle Rock is a rock that's very well known right near the summit of Ring Mountain. If you're on Turtle Rock And if you're looking towards Mount Tamalpais, there's a valley that dips down, just a small, shallow valley, and then it rises again. And if you go from Turtle Rock down that shallow valley and up to the other side, the other large boulder immediately across Turtle Rock, the other large boulder, that's the petroglyph rock. So, I mean, it's only like, you know, like several hundred yards between them. You just dip down and back up.
Right. Okay. And the next question is from Eileen, who asked, did Reid and William Richardson know each other? Some parallels in their stories, any rivalry for land ownership?
Yeah, that's a good question. They did know each other because they were neighbors. But I don't know of any specific stories that would show them interacting. Maybe Ken?
Well, they both married daughters of the Comandante. Richardson was there first. He married Maria Martinez. So I guess that was the way for status. Of course, there weren't that many women around either. So, yeah. And I think the sawmill that he built, didn't it turn out, it was actually on it was on Richardson's land. I mean, those old rancho border boundaries weren't very well defined, but it turned out I think Reid's sawmill was built on Richardson's land, where Mill Valley Park is, the park. But as far as I know, the Irishman and the Englishman both got along once they became Spanish. Neither of them had any interaction with John Marsh. It was the surly guy over in Brentwood.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Next question. Nicole asked, could you please repeat where you can find the rock carving of the head?
Oh, sure. On that one, the easiest way to find it is to enter the park from the end of Endeavor Drive in Corte Madera. And from there, you just follow the fire road up to the Endeavor summit. And from there, you watch for a small trail that follows a ridge off to the left, rather than taking the fire road down to Turtle Rock. And you'll see it in the grass. It's right off. It's a smaller fire road rather than the main fire road. And from the Endeavor summit, it's a left rather than a right. and you come to it. It's only a few steps just off the fire road, and it's well trampled. So if you're looking for it, you'll see it.
Okay. All righty. Next, we have a question from Natasha, who asked, what animals, specifically predators, might you see there?
Well, you do see coyotes up there. I'm sure mountain lions could pass through the area, but I haven't heard any reports recently of anyone seeing mountain lions. Ken, do you have any other answers?
No. Maybe, I don't know if the gray fox is over there. I don't know how many. I just watched a program from an expert on mountain lions in the Bay Area, and for some reason, Marin County doesn't seem to have too many.
Right.
Yeah, we've got them all over here in the East Bay, and then.
Okay. Wendy asked, can you show the pics of the Calochortus again?
Oh yeah, sure. That'd be easy to do. There you go.
Beautiful flower.
Yeah, the flowers are not big. I should have put one with my hand in the image for scale, but the flower is maybe only slightly bigger than a quarter. That's pretty small, right?
And Calochortus means beautiful grass.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Juliana asked regarding the petroglyphs and the height on the rock. When they were, could the rock been, sorry, I'm reading verbatim here. Could the rock have been exposed or elevated from the ground
Hmm.
or even deeper in the ground, depending
That-
on the weather and geological changes?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because we know that the shell mound became completely buried, right? And so the rocks probably were exposed or buried to varying degrees as well. So it's a really good question. Do you have anything to add on that, Ken?
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, if the rock was exposed more, then of course that whole thing that I went through about the extent of the reach and the carvings not being above the distance that a woman can reach, right? That would change. It's a good point.
Okay.
Hmm.
She also asked when were they carved?
Right. I think 2,000 years ago. Ken, do you remember?
No, it sounds
Yeah.
right.
I'm thinking 2,000 years ago.
Okay. And then Natasha had a few more questions. Was the top of Ring Mountain grazed by cattle?
It was.
Okay.
Right.
And then she also asked, when is the best time to see
Hmm.
the Calochortus?
Yep. Yeah. We've discovered the hard way by leading a few hikes to see it and missing it. Mother's Day, right, Ken?
Right.
Mother's
Yeah.
Day tends to be a sure thing.
I think the Marin Native Plant Society does their walks the first weekend in June. We do ours the last weekend in May.
But it's
We're there
important.
first.
But the timing is crucial because it only blooms for a 2-week period.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And there is some variation from year to year because it depends on temperature as well as sunlight.
Great. Well, that's all the questions. So
Mm-hmm.
you on
All
to your quiz.
what I would like to do now, we have just enough time for our short quiz. So stick around and remember I'm a teacher and this is something that high school kids love. So let's try it with this group. It's called a Kahoot. And the title of my quiz is Rock, Flower, or Culinary Term. It's not a serious quiz. The best way to play is if you have your phone handy, grab your phone. All right. So I'll give you a moment to do that because I'll connect on my Zoom screen to the game website. You'll connect to the game on your phone. The questions will appear on the Zoom screen. And then the way you interact and submit your answers is through your phone. That's the easiest way to do it. So if you have your phone, this is what I'd like you to do. I want you to go to a browser on your phone, for example, Safari or Chrome. And I want you to type in the address for the game website. And here it is here. You see it on blue on my shared screen here, www.kahoot with a K.it. Now be careful, you don't want to go to kahoot.com. That's different. You want to go to kahoot.it. And once you go there, you'll be asked to input a game pin, an identification number for the game. And I'm going to give that to you now. So if you're ready, you're going to put in the game pin, you'll put in your name as the player, and then you'll be ready to go. If you don't want to bother with going to this other website on your phone, you don't have to. You could stay right here on the Zoom call, and you could just use the chat window to type your answers in the chat window, just for fun. You won't be scored as a contestant. The people on their phones will be scored. They're competing against each other, but it's just as fun to play this other way where you're just seeing the questions on my screen and typing your answers into the Zoom chat. That's fine. Okay. All right. So I am going to leave this screen so that I can open up my Kahoot screen. Okay. Alrighty, and we're going to play. I'm going to teach, of course. I am.
Did you give us the pin, Kathy?
Not yet. It'll come momentarily. Thanks, Ken. It'll come. It's not. It's still loading. Okay. It's loading the pin. Okay. Now, if you look at the shared screen on the Zoom, you should be able to see the pin. And so you'll input that into your phone. Ken, what does it say? I can't quite read it.
275-3091.
Okay, 275.
275-3091.
Yep. 275-3091. Oh, I see a lot of people coming in. Good. Yeah, nobody says you have to put your real name. A student would never put their real name. Okay, great. We're going to give a few more seconds for other people to come into the Kahoot.
I put Jesse on mine.
You went in as Jesse, did you, Ken?
I didn't do that.
I thought you would go in as Professor Lawson.
Too late now. I should have.
All right, I see more people coming in. Look at that. We have about we're going to end up with like 30 people in the game. Okay, the first one I'm going to talk you through so that if you've never played before, you'll figure it out. All right, shall we start? Oh, good. We got Kirk in here. Good job, Kirk. All right, and if you didn't get in through the website, don't worry about it. Just use the chat window to respond. All right, shall we start then? Let's go. Okay, you're going to be asked, is this a rock, a flower, or a culinary term? I'm going to walk you through the first one. What is a fritillary? Is it a flower, a melange of greywacke, or a crustless quiche? On your phone, you will see colored tiles in red, blue, or yellow. Red is for the flower, blue is for the crustless quiche, and yellow is for the melange of greywacke. Oh, good job. 19 people got the correct answer. The correct answer is it's a flower in the lily family. Now, it's time for me to tell you that you get points for a correct answer, but you also get extra points for a quick response time. So the faster you hit the button for your answer, the better you will do. Are you ready? It's going to give us the ranking. Oh, we got PH on top, followed by Lisa Lee, and then Nancy C. Good job, Lola and Rose, coming on up behind. There are only 10 questions. What is a terrain? Is it a shrub in the parsley family, a mixture of chopped meat set in an earthenware container, or is it a crustal rock scraped from one tectonic plate onto another? Red is shrub, blue is chopped meat, and yellow is crustal rock. Okay, good job. Let's see how the ranking is changing. Ooh, we got Lisa Lee jumping to the top. Nice job. Things will change fast. Next question. What is harvest Brodea? Is it a cornucopia of meats, cheeses, and fruits? That's red. Is it a purple flower? That's blue. Is it a variety of grape? That's yellow. Click on the tile that corresponds to the color of the correct answer. Nice job. Let's see how the rankings change. Lisa Lee holding strong. Got a little bit of a dust up in the second and third place with Rose in second and Lola in third. Nice work. Question number 4. What is a paupiette? Red, a small yellow flower. Blue, a mineral crystal in a metamorphic rock. Or yellow, a thin slice of meat rolled with stuffing. That was a harder one, wasn't it? And the correct answer was a thin slice of meat rolled with stuffing. Ooh, major changes here. Ken, is that you in second place? Nice
Kind
job.
of amazing after I flunked the English
Nice
speaking
job,
meeting
Ken.
the other night.
Coral, good job on top. We got Mikey G coming up fast. What is alluvium? A pile of stream deposited sediment, the scientific name for wild onion, or a chemical element? Alluvium. Nice job. Most people knew that. It is a pile of stream deposited sediment. Let's check the rankings. Ooh, Mikey G, I knew you were coming up fast. Good job. Ken holding steady at second. Nice job. And here comes Squirrel. What does it mean to temper? Is it to slow the growth rate of a plant by exposing it to cold temperatures? To melt through contact with the Earth's outer mantle? Or to add hot liquid to a cold sauce? This one was kind of hard. The answer was to add hot liquid to a cold sauce. Check the rankings. Ooh, got Squirrel in second place. Mikey G holding on top. Ken has fallen to fourth. Hang in there, Ken, hang in there. Kirk, good job. Number 7, what is schist? Is it the greenish juice or milk of a plant? Is it a metamorphic rock? Or is it a German holiday beverage? I think you'll do well on this one. He was in the slideshow. Yes, you did well. You are such good students. Let's check the ranking. Good job, Mikey G. Good job, Squirrel. Good job, Kirk. Hang in there, Ken. This is 8 out of 10. What is a melange? A mixture of hard rocks in shale, a mixture of native and non-native plants, a meringue-based dessert. Good job. It is a mixture of hard rocks and shale. Okay, here we go. Check the scoreboard. Look at that. Mikey G, followed by Squirrel, followed by Kirk, followed by Ken, followed by Rose. Good job. This is 9. What is a slump? Is it an eggless chocolate cake, a bract, or a mudslide? Oh, you guys are getting fast. Very fast. And done. Good job. Most of you recognized it as a mudslide. Next question. This is the last one. Ooh, we got Squirrel on top. Kirk in second place and Ken in third. This is the last question. What is a carnelian? A flower, a paper chef's hat, or a semi-precious stone? We're gonna find out who the grand winners are. That was easy for you all. Excellent job. The answer was a semi-precious stone. Good job. Let's watch people take their places on the podium. Third place, Mikey G. Second place, Ken. Way to go. First place, Kirk. Good job, Kirk. Look at that. And runners up, Squirrel and Rose. Nice job all the way around. All righty, I'm going to stop sharing and come back to you. I hope you all had a great time. Thank you for spending time with us and with Greenbelt Alliance. Ken and Jesse, would you like to say goodbye?
Could you show the last slide, Kathy?
Last slide. You got it. Let me show the last slide.
Yeah, and I just wanted to jump in. Kathy, first of all, we had a question. If you could maybe add a link really quick to the chat of where they can find the petroglyphs.
The petroglyphs?
Yeah.
Sure.
I can also include it in a follow-up email later if you want to just send it to me.
That sounds good.
And on that note, for those of you
the last slide and I'll work on the answer in the chat. Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah, no problem. On that note, just for those of you wondering, we have recorded this virtual outing. So for everyone who registered for the event, you will be receiving an email from us later in the day, which will have a link to that recording as well as some other information. So please watch out for that. And please, if you're interested, sign up for the next one that Ken mentioned earlier with our board member, Bob Johnson, coming up on February 13th. And we wish you all a wonderful weekend. That's it from me.
Okay, and I'm typing my answer for how to find the petroglyphs. Yeah.
Okay.
And it just take me a second longer.
Great. Yeah, we'll go ahead and leave this open.
Yep.
Those who want to grab that answer can. And then we'll close. We'll close.
Nobody wants to know where the toad tree is, huh?
Uh-huh. And petroglyph rock is signed. The easier thing to find is Turtle Rock, which is the most prominent landmark on top of the mountain. Okay, I'm going to send my answer. I hope that I didn't see where it went, but can you see it?
Not see it.
Hang on. Yeah.
When you in the chat box, if you look at the 2, what does it say there?
I was responding to Lisa's question.
Okay, so
in the Q&A, in the Q&A.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And I said Turtle Rock is very well known. And on any map, you could find Turtle Rock. So start there. And from Turtle Rock, looking west, descend into the shallow valley below you and find the largest boulder on the opposite slope. And that's Petroglyph Rock.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that direction.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Kathy, thank you so much for a fascinating presentation. We hope you can all get out and explore Ring Mountain safely, of course. And we wish everyone well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everyone. Nice to see you.